There are 38,000 high schools in the United States. What makes this morning so unique is that there is only one DeMatha Catholic high school in the United States. And we are honoring the patron of our school, the founder of the Trinitarians, and a man of vision who knew an awful lot about human struggle and what he wanted to do to make people's lives better. He didn't just dream, he achieved. Now, as you look around this beautiful Convocation Center, in addition to the DeMatha family here in Hyattsville, you have noticed there are a few newer faces on this side of the altar, and as Father Damien mentioned, we are the Board of Trustees of the school. Now, the only face you are familiar with, or I should probably say, the only voice you are familiar with, is Father Damien. You see Father Damien every morning. But members of the Board of Trustees who sit before you today have served on the faculty of DeMatha through the years. In fact, the current members of this Board of Trustees represent more than 60 years, 60 years of teaching here at DeMatha. Teaching with many of the senior faculty members who are still here, teaching your older brothers, in some cases your parents, cousins, friends, uncles who are now part of the alumni. And this present board represents more than 30 years of being elected to the Board of Trustees. So I'm bringing this out to us because all of these connections help me to say the following. I believe I can speak on behalf of the Board of Trustees and say how good it is for us to be home once again in this magnificent school. Now I have some questions. Why would a school arrange a special schedule to spend some time in prayer just one day before examinations begin? Why will we honor someone with the St. John DeMatha Award? And why would board members travel from Texas, Pennsylvania, and Baltimore just to be here for this Mass with all of you today? Well, the answer is clear. We are here to continue the vision of St. John DeMatha, who lived in the 12th century and died in the 13th century, but whose life and values continue right up to today in this school named in his honor, DeMatha High School. We are here because all of you embody the future vision of St. John DeMatha. The first reading talks about bringing good news to the poor, to the lowly, and to heal the brokenhearted. Now, this passage from Isaiah was written about 800 years before Jesus walked this earth. It was valid when it was written. It was certainly alive in the mind and heart of John DeMatha in the 12th and 13th centuries. And from what I have learned, that spirit is very much alive here within the student body and faculty 2010. The gentlemen and scholars of DeMatha sponsor many different activities of the spirit, which brings good news to the poor, which helps mend broken hearts. And you express that in the winter coat drive, the walk from Mary's house, a Thanksgiving food drive, and a toy drive, all for families in Hyattsville and throughout the greater Washington, D.C. area. DeMatha gentlemen and scholars have worked in the urban plunge, have traveled to Victoria, Texas, to Asbury Park, New Jersey, and the Gulf States to help anyone who needed your skills, your enthusiasm, and your basis of faith. The words of Scripture come alive with the DeMatha faculty and students. So I can say, John DeMatha is very much alive here in our school. When we hear in Scripture today that we must get along with each other, we must respect each other and help each other, because that is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Every time you take the time to tutor, to speak to someone who is sad, to comfort someone who has lost a loved one in death, or lost an important game, or is all messed up because of some relationship problems. Whenever we go out of ourselves to move into someone else's life, John DeMatha is alive here at DeMatha. When we hear in the gospel that people are hungry and thirsty, people need clothing, people need understanding, forgiveness, people need to be lifted up from their sadness or fear, you do that now as it has been done for many, many years. And so yes, DeMatha, St. John DeMatha, is very much alive in our schools. So when we celebrate you, the DeMatha family here in Hyattsville, we celebrate John DeMatha himself. And when we celebrate John DeMatha himself, because of your investment in this vision, we celebrate you. I believe this is a tradition that influences not only great decisions, which impact many, many people beyond these walls that I've just alluded to, but I believe the DeMatha decision involves small changes, influencing the small personal decisions we do every day of our life. And these small decisions happen in front of us daily, not only now, but certainly during all the years of the school's 64-year tradition. So let me just go back a little bit. I can remember when I was working in the counseling center many years ago, we had a new student transfer into the school who was a junior. It was probably October or November, and he didn't know anybody. His family had moved in from out of state. So there he was the first day in a large school, not knowing a single person. And the guidance office went through, gave him his schedule, showed him where the locker was, gave him all the, what do I need to do, what do I need to find, and we did all that. And then we sent him off to his class. And one of my fears that very first day I met him was a very human fear. What's going to happen to this young man at lunch? It's always a pet peeve of mine that nobody should ever eat by themselves. So I got 3 other juniors that I knew very well, and I said, gentlemen, we have a new guy, he just arrived today, he's at your lunch period, would you mind going out of your way to make sure he feels welcome? Of course, I got a very typical junior response, all right, Father James, I will. And I wasn't sure what all right, Father James, I will meant. So I went into the cafeteria. It was a different size. The cafeteria is not as large and beautiful as it is now. I went in the back and went through the cooking area. And I kind of looked around to see if I could notice where the new guy was. And there he was in the midst of all these other juniors, laughing and joking and eating and meeting people, all the things that we like to do at lunch. Gentlemen, I smiled that day. That happened 30 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. And I'm smiling today recounting that. Because that's what we do. We humanize the process of being involved in education. Yes, St. John DeMatha's vision is alive for many, many years. And my last talking about St. John DeMatha, the vision is alive, comes from my own experience now. I'm pastor of a parish in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. The Trinitarians have been there since 1916, so it's a very long tradition of our presence. One of the duties of any pastor is to bury the dead. About 10 years ago, there was a man in the parish who had died. He was a grandfather and a father. So I'm up in the sanctuary, and in the first row is the immediate family, and the casket is right in the center of the aisle. And next to the casket was the deceased gentleman's adult son. And next to him was his son, So we had the grandfather who died, the father, and the grandson all there. And gentlemen, as I looked out into the first row, the father of the deceased, the son of the deceased, the adult male, was sitting there crying. And you know how we men usually are, hide our faces when we're crying and we don't want anyone to see. And his name was Dan, and I knew Dan very well. But then I noticed his 10-year-old son was looking up at his father. And I suspect, gentlemen, that was the first time this little boy ever saw his dad cry. And I was watching the dynamics between the weeping father over his father's death and the son just looking up at his dad. And I'll never forget this. Soon this little hand went up to his dad's back, and he began to pat his dad on the back, saying, "Daddy, that's all right, I'm here. Daddy, that's all right, I'm here." Helping the brokenhearted, comforting those who weep. Yes, the spirit of John DeMatha is alive at St. Anne in Bristol, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Dr. McMahon and the faculty and staff for all that you do to perpetuate the memory and values of St. John DeMatha every day of the school year. Thank you, DeMatha gentlemen and scholars, for all the great and small things that you do to make our school even more talented, more special, more set apart from the rest of the schools in our area. And I want to close with a recent DeMatha memory which touched me very deeply. I was here last March when they blessed this magnificent Convocation Center. The orientation of the chairs were different. The stage was up there, and I was sitting in the front row with some of the other Trinitarians. It was a wonderful ceremony. The Archbishop was here. They had many alumni and friends. The readings were done well. The video was very informative, showing the progression of the building from the hole in the ground to where it is today. It was very memorable with all the music and the singing. But what affected me most is something I suspect many of you take for granted because it's such a part of your regular assembly functions. And it's really no big deal for many of you, perhaps. But it was not that way for me. Because on that dedication day, it was the first time I ever heard the school song, DeMatha Forever. I am told that it has been part of the school tradition for 13 years, but that morning, with the voices of DeMatha first putting their head down for a moment of reflection, and then leading the song, and then hearing all of the students and alumni joining in with that chorus about DeMatha Forever. Gentlemen, you have no idea what impact that had on me last March, and I suspect the impact that had on all of our guests. In the words of our scripture today, you lifted up our spirits. You satisfied the hungers that all of us have for feelings of connection and commitment. And you renewed more than one listless spirit gathered in this magnificent Convocation Center. So I say once again, thank you, gentlemen and scholars of DeMatha, because through you, through Dr. McMahon and the faculty and staff, indeed, the vision of John DeMatha is truly alive and well in Hyattsville, Maryland, December 15th, 2010. God bless all of you.